allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move on to the minutes. We've all received a copy of the minutes. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read them. Are there any questions,
I'll move the
comments?
minutes.
Moved by Bob,
I'll second.
second by Mike. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion's passed. We'll go right into public comments.
I have one. I know. After the last, Joy Eliezer. After the last meeting, my husband and I were talking with Don Braunius, and Dick was asking him about the snowmobile trails. And Don told us which ones to go on because they had just been groomed. He sent us on an absolutely fabulous ride, and we haven't been able to ride much this winter. So it was really wonderful. We did 2 days worth of riding on the trails that Don told us to ride on. He was a good leader for us. And if there's any way, I know he's retired, but if there's any way to hire him back part-time to groom trails next winter, we need him. And guess what? He wouldn't cost us that much because it would be a part-time job. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you.
I hope you didn't throw the alarm clock out, Don.
Mark Prairie. I've got a couple comments concerning a couple resolutions, one from 2012 and the other resolution 61, which was passed at the last board meeting. Excuse me, I don't.
What was that what was that number, the first one?
I'm sorry, 71 of 2011.
Okay.
My comments are directed for the healthcare issue that we're having. Back in 2011, November, I believe, the board passed a resolution, number 71, which required 20 years of service for eligible paid health insurance in retirement for full-time hired employees. It became effective January 1st, 2012. At that time, the board, the town councilman, had health insurance. And I haven't got back far enough in time to see when that came into effect. But it's been around for quite some time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, not sure of the time frame. As far as retirement goes, that goes back also for the board. The board was required to put in 10 years of service. And like I said, January 1st of 2012, the people in the shop were required to put in 20 years of service for health insurance in their retirement. You hear a lot of political talk nowadays. You hear comments about politicians. They look after themselves first. They look after their constituents or taxpayers secondly. If you look back to 2012, there's a prime example where the board, a board of 4, with the support of the supervisor, had health care after 10 years of service, and they required the people doing all the work to go to 20 years. Kind of a slap in the face to think that the town board members at that point were at this level, and for whatever reason, we're gonna put the hired people down at this level. It's like lining your pockets. If you wanna look back at that period of time, maybe that was our little swamp to drain in Lake Pleasant that started back then. let's fast forward to last month. Resolution 61 from Councilwoman Chris Mixner, which she wanted to go back in time for board members to be fair and equal with the existing policy, to make a requirement of 20 years retirement, 20 years of service for paid retirement health care. And in the end, the date of January 1st, 2018 was decided upon for newly elected officials, not existing officials. So in my view, that was kind of a bad attempt at fairness. That was like taking the can and kicking it down the road another couple of years. We didn't take a stand to fix the problem that does exist if you believe in fairness. And like I said, we decided just to go forward and let's go down the road a while further. And you hear that all the time, especially at the federal level. We're always kicking the can. I really think it's time to really put a stake in the ground and try to get this thing fixed so we can get on to better things in town government. Danny Wilt's done a superior job in bringing this information to the forefront, looking out for the taxpayers, looking out for your neighbors. As I was going through this, I prepared a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers on it. I don't know if the board would like to take a look. They're more than welcome if you would like to. So I've summarized all the board, town clerk, judicial, hired employees, what has happened over the last 10 years here. The bottom line is, town board members elected before January 1st of this year, on average, and I think I'm being fairly generous, probably are working 150 hours a year.
84 if you average the last 33 years of councilman years.
How many?
84.
84, average of 84 hours per year.
I've averaged 33 years of councilman service based on reports to the Office of the State Comptroller.
It's not a lot of hours. Doesn't even qualify for a part-time employee of under 30 hours a week. So if you do the math, for retirement health insurance, 10 years, at 150 hours, being generous, is 1,500 hours of time to acquire that benefit. If you look at the guys in the back, I use a number of 40 hours a week. For comparison, that's reasonable. Or 2,000 hours a year, 50 weeks a year. I don't know how much vacation they get. So if you do that math, at 2,000 hours a year, they get health insurance for that much time per year. The board has to put in, I'm saying 150 hours for the same health coverage. If you look at the retirement side of it, the guys in the shop, for 20 years, they have to put in 40,000 hours. 40,000 hours of time to qualify for retired health benefits. The town board of 4, 1,500 hours. 40,000 to 1,500 hours. What's fair about that? How can you look at those guys in the back? How can you put yourself on that pedestal? Those guys are down there. 40,000 hours to 1,500 hours. There's no comparison. It's not even the same universe. So I would encourage you guys to think about that. I have a bunch of numbers here that spread it all out, if you'd like to look. I really think you should consider rescinding resolution number 61, which was passed last month. Rework it. I think we need a resolution about healthcare in general for the 4 board members. Let's look at that again. But I think something needs to be done now so we can put this issue to rest, get back on a fairness scale. Let's not have the politicians here, everybody else there, because that's what we got. Maybe we can get back to equal playing field again as people rotate in and out of elected office. Maybe there'd be more interest for the general public, for your neighbors, my neighbors, to be involved without having to put them, not having to be attacked or a perceived attack. So I would just encourage you, take a hard look at that. And people listening on the radio or here, after hearing those numbers, if you feel the way I do, take 20 minutes and make a 5-minute phone call to each of the 4 elected officials here and express your opinions. And we can keep going forward with bigger and better things. Thank you.
Mark, do I have a copy?
Sure.
I'd like a copy too if I could, if you have more than one.
We can make copies. That's no
Yeah.
A bunch. There should be enough for the board right there.
problem. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else for public comment?
Yeah, Dick Elliott, on these same lines, I can tell you I have a very good friend of mine that's a 20-year employee of North Jersey school system. She's a 35-hour employee up until last September, which gave her full health care. Last September, they dropped her hours to 32 hours. No more health care. 20 years on the job. We got people here that don't work 20 hours a month on the job. They're getting full health care. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, somebody's got to step to the plate. These folks have knocked on my door in the past, in election time, and told me, if I'm elected, I'm going to save the taxpayers some money. Hasn't happened. It's just like a story that they tell you. They get you to sign their freaking petition. I won't sign anybody's petition anymore because they just lied to you. And, Mark got some numbers about how many hours these people work. At the last election, one of the freaking board members wrote a letter to the newspaper. She works 29 hours a month. That doesn't qualify you for health insurance anywhere in this stratosphere in 2018. Maybe 29 hours a week doesn't even give you health care in most businesses. It's 35 hours. So that was a story that was written in the freaking newspaper that made no freaking sense at all. And all I can say is if this board doesn't move in the next year or two, the next election, I can guarantee you folks, there's going to be people that aren't on this board anymore. Because the taxpayers are going to get tired of you not moving on some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Mark. Any other public comments? Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on to highway. Randy?
All right, well, thank you for your comment about the trails. Means that if you enjoyed them, a lot of other people have also, and still are, from what I've been hearing. We're gonna get more snow this week, so I doubt we'll have the rumors out, but we're gonna get more snow.
Sleds are put away, Randy, sleds are put away.
Mine are also, so. The Perkins gates are closed and locked
Yes.
due to some individuals thinking that the snow has been melted down enough they can drive their vehicles in there. Not only on the plowed part, but onto the snowmobile trails. DEC is pursuing
finding out who they are and writing tickets. The 210, the truck that I drive, have driven all winter long. The new one has gone back to Denoyer Chevrolet. They have replaced it with yet another new truck. This time the correct truck. Thank you to Denoyer for standing up to their mistakes. Allowed me to put $5,000 on the truck and turned it back in as if it was a rental and picked up a new one.
Beautiful.
I give Denoyer Chevrolet a lot of kudos for that. And he didn't argue with me, didn't fight, nothing. It was their idea. So it worked out well. The Auctions International auction was over Friday. We did okay on some and phenomenal on some others. With the 2018 truck, we got $5,400 for. That had 190,000 miles on it. I think that was exceptional. The car,
Randy, what truck was that? I'm sorry.
218.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
You said 2000.
what'd you
What
get?
year was that truck?
Oh, what year was it? It was 2008. I misspoke.
Okay.
Truck 218,
Right, and how much did you get?
5,400. The car that we purchased from the county this fall, car 230, 101,000 miles on it. We got 2550 for, which is 550 more than we purchased it from the county.
Good deal.
The way I look at it, anything above the break-even mark is good. The grader did end up under what the trade-in value was. We called the highest bidder, which is our counter offer, which is in the clause, and they offered more to get it above the trade-in value. So it went for $15,500. That was the town of Steuben, which is a neighboring town, 3 towns over, but it's still in the area. The new graders showed up today. It is at the shop. They have a couple small details, warranty stuff that paperwork to solve right now. And then as soon as the roads ever thaw out, we'll be on the roads with it. But right now anything is too heavy. Obviously the roads are posted, so we will be playing in the yard, getting used to it. It's 100% computerized, and I do mean 100%. It's a very nice machine. Just a little bit of getting used to get rid of old habits from the old machine. And that's it. I'll mention this. The village board has not made a decision. They tabled the propane tank request here until the next meeting. So that's where we stand on that. We will be looking into assisting DEC, I guess you could say it, for Moffitt's Beach soon. Something we brought up last year. At the end of the year, they ground the road down and trying to get them to pave it. And that's still in the works. And as soon as, once again, the roads come unposted, we'll get started on that. Discuss paving for the town of Lake Pleasant for this coming summer with the company today. In high hopes that spring comes like it has in the past few years early. We are number 2 on the list of towns, counties to get started. That puts us in the middle of May. Fawn Lake Road will be shimmed, the top shim on that. Or not shim, I shouldn't say that. The top coat on that. Tamarack Road is going to have a top coat on it also. Golf Course Road, Coffis Road, and Sacandaga Estates is going to have a chip seal. And the library here and the health center will be paved, somewhere between May 28th and 1st of June, which I believe is well above what everybody wanted, and we're just asking for it to be done before the grand opening or ceremony. But that is very tentative. Mother Nature hasn't decided it for summer yet. Like I said, we're number 2 on the list, the county is number 1. So we're hoping we stay that way.
What about this side of the parking lot that the Friends were gonna pay for?
I haven't discussed anything with the Friends yet, so I'll get to you.
Okay.
It's, can easily be done at the same time, let's put it out. But I didn't wanna open my mouth and insert foot yet.
Okay, well, I did it for you.
Okay. So, that's all I have.
That's it?
Yep.
Great. Do we have any old business to discuss? Hearing none, we'll move on to new business, and we'll begin with the resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the purchase of the grade off for the town of Lake Pleasant. We'll have a copy of it, I believe. Debbie, do we have to read this at the meeting?
Shoot, man.
They'll be in town by-
It's
I had one question.
okay.
Which has no bearing on whether I would vote for it or not. It was a word I had a question on. So let's not waste the time. No, it's not this resolution.
No? Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So I'll entertain for a motion to pass this resolution, which I'll make the motion that we authorize subject to permissive referendum.
I'll second.
Second by Bob. All in favor? Any discussion? I'm sorry?
Aye.
Aye? Okay,
Aye.
all right. Opposed? Hearing none. This resolution's passed. Next thing under new business I have was something that just came up the other day on the county level. We have Mark Streb from Strategic Development Specialties will be coming to the county board meeting with some information on opportunities for potential partnerships on grants. They're a grant writing company, and we've been after the county to look into some professional grant writing, because I and some of the other board members feel we're missing some opportunities that we should be at least applying for. So between now and Thursday, if anybody has any type of grant that we should or would consider pursuing, please let me know, and I will bring it up at this meeting.
I know we had applied for a grant before to do a bicycle lane going west on Route 8.
Okay. I'll mention that.
Yeah.
Isn't that federal money that pays for that, I believe, right?
I don't know the answer to that. I just remember we applied for it, but I don't know who we applied through.
I did plan on bringing up any possibilities on a grant for the museum, which we had discussed in the past, but have not been very successful with.
And also, I guess, the extension of the water. I'm sure that was on your list.
Yeah, but I don't think there's enough public support to
Okay.
pursue that,
Yeah.
so I kind of scratched that off the list, so. But if there is anything else that you can think of, please let me know.
Well, there was a grant announced March 8th, a grant opportunity. It's North Country Lodging Development Feasibility Study, if I've got that right.
That's part of the hut-to-hut?
Good. I don't know. All I know
sounds
is
like
it's
it
a
would be.
$13 million fund.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
That's part of that, yeah.
Okay, so that's all that's for?
I haven't read it all, so I really can't honestly answer that, but I know part of that was for the hut-to-hut project,
Okay.
which phase 1 doesn't affect us, but phase 2 does do a loop in this area, which
Right.
where we could
I
all
was just
benefit
wondering if
here.
any of our lodging
Don, I think you've been
facilities
up on
would
that, haven't
maybe
you?
qualify.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great if they did.
Mm-hmm.
What little we have.
Not much.
Right.
Mostly Airbnb rooms.
Okay, again, 2 other resolutions came up. These were actually originally written just recently by AATV, and was brought to the attention of the county board that we should all, as each town, consider passing these resolutions. One of them is it's on supporting the exemption of the New York State-owned former Camp Gabriel's Correctional Facility property located in the town of Brighton. County Board feels it's be important to help support this, as they would be supportive of helping us with some resolutions in the future. So I know it really doesn't affect us here, but statewide it could be good, and it would be good for the town of Brighton. I'll read it. Whereas the former Camp Gabriel's Correctional Facility was closed by New York State in 2009 and has been vacant and unused since that time. And whereas the state took possession of the original 220.9 acres in 1982, they did add 129.2 acres of the property to the forest preserve. And whereas the 91.7 acres, which is Camp Gabriel's, was already developed and has a long history of occupation with extensive use since the late 19th century, and is consistent with the Forever Wild preservation or provision. Whereas the state and the deed, those 91.7 acres are inconsistent with the Forever Wild provision, as they contain 55 buildings, roads, a self-contained wastewater treatment plant, heating plant, wells and water distribution systems, and a backup generator capable of keeping the facility secure in the event of a North Country power outage. And whereas New York State conducted several auctions to sell the Camp Gabriel's property, and whereas a prospective private purchaser was unable to complete the purchase and obtain insurance because his property is located within the Adirondack Park and potentially subject to the Forever Wild provision in the state constitution. And whereas it is the best interest of the economic development in the Adirondack North Country communities that the property and facility be encumbered for private purchase and put to good use in the region. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Lake Pleasant hereby supports a statewide referendum by the voters of the New York State, and that this property be encumbered for private purchases exempt from the Forever Wild clause in the state constitution and not be added to the forest preserve. Debbie, I believe I sent you a copy of this. No. Okay.
Yeah, that's the word I struggled with.
Yeah. Chris caught it too, and I corrected it. I have it here somewhere, but this isn't the corrected copy. I'll pass that down to you. And I'll make a motion that we pass this resolution.
I'll second it.
Second by Chris. Discussion? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Resolution's passed. Just myself and Chris. And the second one that I have is supporting the Police Benevolent Association of New York State Incorporated proposal to increase Department of Environmental Conservation forest ranger staffing in the state to a statewide total of 175. They've been adding it up, to sum all this up, they've been adding an awful lot of land to the Adirondack Park the state has without increasing the number of forest rangers. And this is a resolution that they would like to see move forward where DEC would hire more rangers to control this additional property at least and be reasonably able to cover this much larger tract of land, so. Is this something I need to read? I believe I sent it to all of you.
No,
No?
it's a good resolution.
There's
on it.
been a ranger shortage for a long time, and
Yes,
it's getting
there has.
worse.
Right.
Yes.
I'm sure John would be supportive of this.
Yeah, the one thing that I ran by him that I think should be added is that the rangers should have to live in the communities that they serve, as they did historically, because right now, we don't have a local ranger who lives in our community, and they're not available when needed unless they drive an hour here from wherever they live. So that's something that the state changed years ago, and I think it was a mistake.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to bring that up at the county board meeting Thursday and to see if this possibly could be added.
You gonna bring it up?
I'd be more than happy to if.
Please do.
Okay, good.
So we'll add that to our resolution.
Yeah, I believe that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll move we do that. Move the resolution with the change.
With the change. I'll
Okay.
second.
Second by Mike. Discussions? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed.
Can you get a copy of that? Can you email them?
I'll correct it, add this to you, and then I'll get you a
Okay.
copy, okay? Is there any other new business,
I
anyone?
have something.
Nancy?
I want to apprise the board of something that was done last year that I'm not sure the board was made aware of. I've been concerned about the way our full-time employees were paid overtime for their BTI work. I was concerned about this as an employee who was doing payroll at the time, but it was decided that was the way it should be done. 2 full-time employees had their pay cut to $12 an hour to get paid overtime for the BTI work they did, so that they would get paid $18 an hour, which was what the part-time BTI workers were getting at that time. I was concerned that the practice was illegal, and I did some research with the New York State Department of Labor, and I got an email back and it said most employees must receive overtime pay at the rate of 1.5 times their regular rate of pay for all hours worked over 40 in a work week, and that's a direct quote. They said that there were some exemptions to this rule, and one of them was for municipalities. And I followed up with 2 or 3 emails last week, and they never answered me. And then while I was actually looking over my notes today, the phone rang, and they called me. And this nice gentleman explained to me that it is legal for a municipality to do so. However, the employees have to be presented with a form in writing that this pay cut would be made, and in doing so, they have a decision that whether they want to accept it or not accept it. If they accept it, the town would have to do a blended pay rate. And he went through this big convoluted method of figuring out how they would get paid, which is pretty much putting their regular pay for the hours they work their regular time, and the other one that they would work for BTI, and then they would blend it together and come up with an average, and that's what they would be paid. And I really don't think that's fair, but I think that it's something that the town board should discuss, whether they should lose their regular overtime in order to work BTI on their days off. I mean, Mr. Prairie talked about fairness between part-time employees and full-time employees. Well, it works in reverse in this case.
So can that be done in a partial year, or is that blended and have to be?
It would be blended for the time, the work time that they do it. So based on
So it could be
like
specific,
40
yeah.
hours that they're working, if they have, 20 hours overtime, it would be, that amount would be blended to their current pay, and then they would be paid at that rate for the
Okay.
time worked. And it didn't sound fair to me, and I asked him every which way, and I did explain that this was all overtime. This was not done as, on regular work time where it would make a difference that way. And he kept telling me over and over the same thing, that you have to do blended work. So I just wanted to apprise the board that this was done last year. The payroll program that I was working with, I know Kathy had a lot of headaches because it didn't want to pay employees 2 different rates of pay.
Hmm.
And it took quite a bit of work to get it, so that she wasn't getting errors every time she did a payroll, so. I just wanted to make sure.
Did you address that at all last year?
What,
The problems and,
with the payroll?
right,
I wasn't doing payroll at the time, but I know Kathy had issues with it.
you got a simple fix, Randy will supply some people for
I knew this was coming.
We'll look into that. But I know at the time when this came up, we talked with the town attorney and
Well, this was directly from the Department of Labor. They also said something about the federal laws are different and more strict about it, but, that they might consider it not legal to do that. But the state of New York is
yeah,
okay with it doing it blended. I have a copy of the form that would need to be filled out by the employee if they would like to, and the employer.
So if I understand correctly, you're saying that these are regular full-time employees of the town
Mhm.
who are volunteering to work for pay, applying BTI on their days off.
I don't know if they're volunteering, but they
Well,
were
nobody's
hired by
making them do
no,
it,
but they
right?
were hired by the town to do that.
Yeah, they want to
their
do it.
volunteer.
Yeah.
they are volunteers and the town did pay for the training and
Not for the hours of doing the training, though. just the actual coursework, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not an issue of trying to be fair or unfair. It was an issue of being
Able to do it.
more,
Being able to do it.
well,
Yeah.
being able to do it, find able bodies, number one.
Yeah, exactly.
But the existing applicators, to put the town guys in a pay grade, that's acceptable within the budget of the BTI budget. How many dollars do we want to spend applying BTI in town?
Yeah,
And that seemed to be at the time, seemed to be a good compromise. They're willing and able, they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So you're willing to do it at $18 or,
Are the
Whatever.
applicators, you're talking about the ones that are not town employees? They get
Well-
$18 an hour last year.
Mhm.
Did they also get benefits?
no,
To me, you're comparing apples and oranges.
so they made the same, they made the same rate, $18, as another applicator did.
that was
But they
not
may
an employee of
under
the
this
town.
new
Right.
blended thing.
Yeah,
Will make
Right.
less.
It sounded to
so.
me as though they
Why don't we
would
just
make
leave it the way it was so they can make their $18 an hour?
well then it would come in at overtime.
It's all overtime.
It's
Would have been all
overtime.
overtime, at time and a half.
But
If they were working a regular 40 hours.
Down.
And doing it on the weekend, then that would have been all overtime.
See, they're working 40 hours at a time.
I think we can resolve this just if they don't work as town employees. Can't they do it?
No,
They
you
can't.
can't do that. We couldn't do that.
We tried that, we can't.
They're being paid by the same place. The town of
Right,
Lake Pleasant is paying them for
Mhm.
the work that they do normally and for the BTI. So you can't legally say that they're, not getting over.
But did I understand correctly that you said their regular pay was cut to $12 an hour, so their overtime would come out to $18 an hour?
Right.
Because the hours they spent doing the BTI was overtime for them.
Right.
And
But
the-
how can you cut their pay to $12 an hour for 2 days a week and the rest of the time it's the regular rate?
There you go.
Well, the
That's
way-
why it didn't
The way
sit
that it
right.
should have worked is they should have been, there's a separate job classification for BTI applicator,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a separate, whatever the normal job classification is.
Right.
So if you put them in the
Hey.
BTI applicator,
Please.
job classification, that job classification is rated at $12 and something an hour,
Right.
all right? So that when it got hit against the 40-hour overtime,
The overtime
The
after
overtime
40
is paid.
hours, yeah.
But that
Brought
would,
them to
but that would be like saying, okay, when they do mechanics work, they should get paid mechanic. When they pick up garbage, they should be paid laborer. You can't,
A lot of
I don't
people-
know if you can do
a lot of
that.
companies in the world do that.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
do.
that's
That's a standard thing.
Absolutely. They do it at the school.
Excuse me,
Have they passed all their state
Ed,
certification?
could you stand up and say your state name, please?
Have they passed state certification?
I believe so,
Yes.
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 They're also.
So why can't they just issue a separate check paying them what they would pay a normal applicator and not pay overtime?
Because it still
Yes.
qualifies
Because
for
it all comes out
overtime.
of the same
All works on the
fund.
same social security number.
But if they're working a separate job,
It's same employer.
Same employer, different,
but
yeah.
I think you can still have a part-time job, you just have to have two different job descriptions.
exactly.
If that job is Monday through Friday, the part-time job
Right.
falls. And if it can't be paid by the town, it could be paid by the county or by the
No.
organization, the village.
In all honesty, we tried every angle. Hold on one second. We tried every angle to get around this, so it wouldn't. But that's why I ended up back with the town attorney for guidance on how to move forward with this at the time, and this was their suggestion. So, I'm sorry, Joy.
The other, one of the other wrinkles in there, DEC requires applicators to be paid by a municipality. They cannot be independent contractors unless they own their own business.
Business, right.
Okay.
Which is where we came from.
Right.
This was years
Joy,
ago, I haven't worked in a
state your
long
name,
time.
please.
Joy Eliezer. This is a long time ago, because I haven't worked in a lot of years, but I worked a before-school program and an after-school program, along with being a teacher. My teacher's salary was X number of dollars. My before-school care and my after-school care was on the same paycheck, was the same stub, different headings in that stub. And those hours that I did preschool and after-school care were a set amount of money. They did not even take out for my pension, because that wasn't pension-oriented money. Only my paycheck was, my actual teaching. So if they could do that on a paycheck 20 years ago, why can't they do it today?
Well, it
Because we
was-
have computers now.
I was finding the legality of it, if it was legal to cut someone's pay to pay overtime. Because to me, it just didn't seem fair. By doing that, this is what I found from the state of New York. This had,
Well, I don't think the guy's pay ought to be cut. I mean, that's ridiculous, but why can't they just have a pay stub that says, 40 hours working
that's what they
here?
had.
Okay, it's
But it
40
was
hours
a
working
lower,
here,
yeah.
and now it's 20 hours for the month for BTI. And it's a separate line, a separate item, paid, my paycheck came from Hackensack Board of Education, but they figured it out, so,
Oh,
possibly could be figured out on the computer system. I'm not, that isn't
Yeah.
my concern. My concern was just following what the law is, and this is what the Department of Labor told me today.
So in order to follow the law, we have to present the employees who wish to apply BTI with a written statement
Right.
that this is how they would be compensated.
Right,
and they
and
have to
then they
agree
would
to it.
have to agree to it in writing, and it has to be put in their
So
file
that
for a
would
certain
solve
amount of
your
time.
concerns there, because then they would be fully informed.
Right. And then if they
But it-
decide not to, then they decide
Yeah.
not to, I guess, yeah.
But they're gonna make less money.
How about if we look into this some more before the next
Well, my
meeting?
thought was that they should get paid their time and a half just because they're town employees, and that's what they should be getting.
So someone who's a town employee is going to get paid time and a half and something for doing exactly the same job as someone who's doing it and is not a town employee.
But it's
And that's fair?
advertised, well,
They chose to do it on their days off as their own choice versus the guy who's doing it right alongside of them because he's not a town employee working 40 hours a week, he's penalized?
They're both town employees.
They're both town
Yeah,
employees.
but the one who's working and chose to do it on his day off is now more valuable than the other guy. And I don't think that's.
Well, we're not saying that. That's
No.
what,
But
that's
if
what,
they
the-
pay them
that's
that
what the
way,
state
if
is
in
saying.
fact they get time and a half at $18.
Mark and I spent a lot of time on this a year ago, trying to come up with a fair way of doing it. I did approach the employees that were involved, and at the time, they were satisfied with the route we took.
We
Um,
gave it to them in writing, you know, this is, you're gonna be making 18,
Oh, you
whatever it
did?
was an
Yeah.
hour.
did you give it to them in writing?
Well, not for signature, but by email, you know, laid out, you're gonna get $18 an hour, and we're gonna try to, we need to just work the payroll system, so the
Right.
number of hours you work times $18 is what you're gonna get.
yeah.
You know, we're not gonna pay you at $27 or $30 an hour.
Do we,
That ain't gonna happen. They agreed to that, and we invested $1,000 per employee in training, certification, so on and so forth. You know, so the town's got a hunk of change tied up in this.
so it's anticipated we would want to do the same thing this spring?
Yeah, based on historical numbers of amount of hours it takes to apply the BTI, yeah. But,
I'm getting too old.
yeah.
Well, I personally don't have any problem with it as long as the employees are fully informed in writing, like Nancy said.
Yeah,
Just
that
so
don't-
that we know for certain, and ask them to sign, that we understand what we're reading.
Yeah. Nancy, if you can give me the names of who you spoke to so I can find out what forms is required.
I got the form right here.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
His name was, David Mattice, I believe.
Name, if you can forward me his name and phone number, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, because that's gonna have to start doing that soon.
So,
Yeah, it's gonna, won't be long.
Dan, can I ask you a question? This blending, is that not gonna, my budget lines will still be.
Yeah,
that will be
yeah,
that.
that's good, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about
Hey, just asking.
Is there anything else the board would like to bring up under new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain for a motion to pay the bills. Anyone? Yeah, Chris? Second?
I'll second.
Second, Mike? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion's passed. We'll move on to the second public comment session. Anyone? Hearing none, I don't see any reason to go into executive session unless someone else does. No? Roundtable. Nancy, we'll start with you. How's that?
I'm done.
Okay.
I don't have anything tonight.
Chris, Bob?
No, don't have anything.
I just want to say that we're glad everything worked out well with you, Bob, and
Thank you for your
That's for sure.
concern.
glad you're here tonight. That's pretty remarkable as far as I'm concerned after what you just went through, so. Mike,
No, I have nothing.
Ray, do you have anything?
Yeah, just so that, get it on the table. In the next, probably, it was just beginning of April, by next month, I'm gonna be asking, instead of replacing a retiree with a full-time, I'm gonna go to a seasonal worker. I'm working out some details at this point, but something to ponder upon. Rather than replacing a full-time, we go over the seasonal worker.
Labor?
Yet, at this point, labor, that labor, depending on wintertime would have to be an MEO. But we're working on that.
Okay. Okay. If that's it, then I'll entertain for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So, Chris?
I'll be quick.
All right. In a second? I'll second. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mark.